Hello there, and welcome to Journey to Recovery. We appreciate you listening. Our podcast today is entitled Finding Contentment in Recovery, Part 1. I think everyone could use a little more joy and happiness in life, so today will definitely move us in that direction. We'll cover 10 simple truths about obtaining and retaining happiness and contentment. Our host is Dr. Hal Baumchen, a licensed clinical psychologist and licensed alcohol and drug counselor. He is the executive director of Northland Counseling Services and the clinical director of North Star Regional Co-occurring Disorder Treatment Programs. He is an author, speaker, and clinician with over 30 years of counseling experience. Hello, Tim. Morning, Hal.
Hello, Gaylen.
Hey, Gaylen.
How are you doing today, Dr. Hal?
I'm good. Every time we get started, today, of course, it was finally we get started because we had some technological trouble.
Yeah.
It's always nice, makes me happy.
Yeah, so despite the technological problems, you seem like you're in a good mood today.
I'm always in a good mood. I think you are, too. How about you, Gaylen? Are you usually a pretty upbeat, optimistic?
I'll be in a better mood if we establish that the technical problems weren't mine this time.
Okay.
Well, actually, they weren't they, when you come
I think
right to it?
last time or a couple times ago, we forgot the camera, and we had to make a trip to go get the camera.
Yeah.
So here, what we do, I just was thinking about this yesterday, that we do an audio podcast and then we video record ourselves doing an audio podcast in Morse Studios. That's Gaylen's studio here in Minnesota. And then we hope that you either listen to it or that you enjoy watching it online. So
Not while you're driving.
right.
Don't watch while you're driving.
You could do that. If someone else is driving, you can do it in the car, but not while you're operating the vehicle. What are we talking about today, guys?
Being happy and content, finding contentment, right, in recovery.
Right, and it's an important concept for anyone coming off of drugs and alcohol because maybe there was a kind of a false sense of euphoria or joy or happiness. And so now without the drugs and alcohol, can you find happiness? Can you be content with your situation? We're going to talk about how to establish that and maybe how to find some joy. And we were laughing earlier before we put the cameras on, like, it got away on us. It must be somewhere. Let's look around for it. Where would you find contentment?
There's so many things that can seemingly make you miserable.
Absolutely.
It's important for us to talk about how we can have a brighter, happier, and more positive mood.
Right. You could just repeat all the problems of the day. I think that would drag you down, but a lot of people end up doing that.
Yeah. So, as you indicated earlier, you're usually in a good mood. I'm usually in a good mood, upbeat, easygoing. You're a pretty positive guy.
And we're going to talk about some things that people can do to find contentment and happiness. And if you ask me, how are you so happy? I actually do those things we're going to talk about. So some of those are important, and we'll help you establish in your recovery some contentment and happiness.
Mm-hmm. So do you think there are some things that can actually make us more content or happier, or is it just based on circumstances?
A lot of people would think it's just based on circumstances, Gaylen, but I actually think it has to do with attitude. Whether or not you're in difficult or miserable circumstances or have a tough situation, you can still kind of change your attitude around. It's something that you can do, regardless of your circumstances.
Mm-hmm. So since we're talking about happiness, maybe we should define happiness, what that term means. So the term happiness is often used to describe a wide range of positive emotions such as contentment, joy, and gratitude.
Right. And we use happiness as a way to describe something that's usually satisfying or helps us be more content.
To be happy, it's not just emotionally gleeful or constantly smiling. Contentment has a certain depth and deliberation, right? You
know what makes me happy? Pizza. Pizza makes me happy, and Q-tips with a lot of cotton. That's what makes me happy. Yeah, I think those are fleeting, superficial, small things. I'm not sure. Maybe you could say that makes me happy, brings a smile to my face or something, but it's not that long-term contentment. Researchers actually use happiness or contentment interchangeably with well-being, and that might be a good descriptor for us.
Yeah, so not just a fleeting, quick, almost meaningless feeling or emotion like I like Q-tips.
Right, right. Which I do, but not in terms of contentment. I think we'll talk about this in a few minutes, but for me, it's got to have more meaning to it, and it's got to have some purpose. My life has to have some purpose for me to be content and happy. In 2007 book, The How of Happiness, researcher Sonia Lyubomirsky described happiness as the experience of joy, contentment, and positive well-being combined with a sense that life is good, meaningful, and worthwhile.
That's interesting. Happiness, then, or contentment, is combined with a sense that life is good, meaningful, and worthwhile?
And again, that's so true for me. My contentment has to go a bit deeper than Q-tips. It's got to have that meaning behind it or some purpose, that kind of thing for me.
Yeah, so when we say things like I love pizza or summer makes me happy, those would be more superficial expressions and not that true long-lasting sense of well-being or contentment that we're talking about here. Is that right?
Yeah, or winter makes me miserable and summer makes me happy. To your point, I think, again, that's based on situations and circumstances. We want to talk about generating that attitude that can make you feel happy or content no matter what situation you're in.
Yeah.
Like dropping the toast peanut butter side down.
Man, I hate it when that happens.
What's the stat on that? The probability?
So the probability actually is tied to the height above the floor.
And landing peanut butter side down is directly proportional to how thick you smeared it on.
But they've actually done research. And so table height, it tends to land peanut butter or butter side down more often, but if you drop it higher, then statistically it has a chance to apparently turn more.
So if you eat your breakfast on a ladder, you'll never drop it peanut butter side down.
Exactly.
Right, you're not holding your toast high enough. I thought I was dropping it too often, but I guess the problem is I wasn't holding it high enough.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Tim.
That all seems pretty fickle.
Yeah, it does. And if I get my happiness tied to that, that's that fickle thing, isn't it?
Yes.
Superficial, tied to a situation. And people like this that I dropped my toast, peanut butter side down. I woke up a few minutes late. Traffic was bad. It was cloudy outside today, and my wife hit me with a frying pan just when I was leaving. And all of that drags me down in terms of my mood, attitude, and disposition. It's all tied to circumstances. So wouldn't it be nice if we could find a way to unhook ourselves from those trivialities of everyday life? Those are just superficial and really wouldn't factor into my overall sense of contentment, and that really wouldn't be a way to define my life and keep my life from being good or meaningful or worthwhile.
So are you saying that we should always be happy in everything we do, every second of the day?
Well, yeah, it's a good question. No, I don't think so. I think it'd be a mistake. Well, let me say it this way. I don't think it's a mistake to be happy. However, I do think it's a mistake to try to chase happiness.
Instead, it might be better for us to pursue a worthwhile and meaningful life with purpose.
And then end up happy. Exactly.
So when someone with mental health problems or substance abuse difficulties starts their recovery journey, are there some common errors they make when they look at happiness?
Yeah, somebody in recovery, but I think everybody makes these mistakes. We're going to go over several of them. First, we often discount just the pain and sadness and heavy hearts that maybe come into every life, but we hate those, and that's actually a mistake. We have to be kind of careful with that.
Those down moods can actually motivate us and push us to greater creativity, right?
And you can imagine that somebody who's addicted with drugs and alcohol might be pretty used to instant gratification. I want what I want, the way I want it. I'm used to being able to chase euphoria and make the bad feelings go away. And they want to feel good right now and all the time. And somebody with a substance use disorder might be pretty uncomfortable when they are uncomfortable.
Say what?
Okay. They don't like being uncomfortable, not even a little. How's that? Someone who's addicted might be described as a discomfort dodger. They want to feel good, and they feel compelled to use the drugs or alcohol to try to achieve that.
Like chasing the dragon, trying to achieve that perfect high?
Yeah, that's that thing where, you've had that euphoric experience, maybe the first, second time that you used the drug, and from that point forward, you chase that, wanting to get that again or make that experience even more perfect than the original one. And it's tough or impossible to find that.
Yeah, we don't ever really want to be unhappy, do we? Can you give us some examples of how unhappiness can work to our advantage, how it can be a good thing?
Well, like Gaylen mentioned, I think it can cause some people to be more creative. Some of the finest music ever written, I think, is written out of those periods of sadness and grief and loss and hardship and agony. A good country western song, the blues or something, for sure, written out of a period of sadness.
Yeah. Hymns are old spirituals too, I think, right?
Yep.
Even some rap music describes the pain and misery of our current culture today.
Right, I have trouble with rap music, so...
Yeah, I know.
You can't hum it while you're driving down the highway.
I have trouble with that. Yeah. And some art pieces, I think, beautifully portray the struggles of humanity, and they illustrate the emotional pain that many people can actually relate to.
Still, people typically don't like those feelings of sadness, disappointment, and unhappiness.
When people feel those painful emotions, they often grab superficial quick fixes like sex, drugs, rock and roll, instant pain relief through those things. And they try to subdue the uncomfortable emotions that come their way.
Yeah, but those things seem like they would only work for a short while.
Yeah, which, as somebody pursuing instant gratification, that was the point. But it's exactly right. Instant indulgences actually do work at first, and then they backfire, causing even more pain, like getting drunk one night. And wow, my pain was gone. I felt great. We laughed like crazy. Got a DWI on the way home. Just a horrible thing. Additionally, people often feel entitled to more happiness or constant happiness, which seems to only increase a sense of kind of despair or futility.
So we want it, and we're unhappy, irritated, and frustrated when we don't get it.
Right. That's exactly right.
Dr. Hal, do happy people fare better in life than unhappy
It's
people?
interesting. That turns out to be true. It seems unfair, doesn't it? They're happy and they do better in life. But various researchers indicate that happy people have several remarkable advantages, such as, on average, happy people are more successful than unhappy people in both work and love. And also, happy people get better performance reviews and earn higher salaries. And there's some other things, too.
Well, what about relationships? You mentioned happy people were more successful in love.
That's right. Happy people are more likely to get married, and once they're married, are more likely to be satisfied with their marriages.
So you mentioned there were some other things. Here are some other things, some remarkable things about being happy.
Happy people tend to be healthier and live longer.
Well, which, here you're happy and you have an extended life, so it's kind of a double great thing, isn't it?
Yep. Happiness makes people more flexible and more creative.
And happiness can help build inner resources, including strength, wisdom, friendship, even resilience, where you bounce back better. Again, part of that, just feeling optimistic, like, well, I had a little down time, but, I'll bounce again, and it's going to be okay, and I'm sure everything's going to work out.
Yeah. Happy people are more generous.
Happy people have more friends. Maybe those two are tied together.
Yeah, money is your friend. The more money you have, the more friends you have. Is that what you're saying?
Something along that line, yes.
And kind of you alluded to this already, Dr. Hal, but happy people cope better with stress and trauma.
I think it's really important. Happy people are more able to see the big picture.
Right. So if Target is out of the Q-tip variety that I like, what do you call a Q-tip? Not the name brand,
Cotton swab.
Cotton swab. They're out of the cotton swab brand that I like, and then I'm unhappy about that. But that's not big picture thinking by any stretch of the imagination.
In so many ways, happy people tend to perform better and handle difficulties better than unhappy people.
And I think optimistic, kind-hearted, upbeat, outgoing, and enthusiastic people actually attract other people to themselves. If you're downcast, pessimistic, sad, feel beat up or moody, irritable, easily frustrated, I think you actually drive people away from you. So optimism attracts and pessimism repels.
People want to be around people that make them feel good. We want to be around somebody who's upbeat, somebody who's happy.
Right.
Well, nobody wants to be around me. Well, are you making anybody feel good? No, you're making somebody feel miserable by your own miserableness. So you're right, Gaylen. People want to be around people who make them feel good, and happy people make others feel good. Happy people can see the possibilities in the future. They look forward with gladness. They might do those happy things that people do, such as happy people sing songs or laugh a lot or make jokes or let problems roll off easily or make fun of something that would drive other people crazy.
I think we can get started on those 10 simple truths about contentment that Gaylen mentioned at the beginning of today's podcast, but we'll probably have to finish next time.
I don't think we're going to get very far.
Let's see how far we can get.
That makes me unhappy just thinking about it.
So let's get started. The first truth is that happiness is maximized when you feel part of a community.
I think this might be like the number one. I mean, we have it as number one, but it might be the first and foremost, the biggest thing here. Strong, healthy relationships do the most to produce contentment. You might ask yourselves what you can do to increase your sense of community and strengthen your social networks. How can you feel like you fit in, you belong, you're understood, you're accepted? And we got to be around people that accept us, understand us, and encourage us. When you feel connected like that, it's going to bring that sense of contentment and happiness that we've been talking about today.
So you're saying you could increase your happiness by getting involved in healthy relationships.
Right. And you might have to stay away from those people that drag you down. But if you could get around somebody who encourages you and understands you, you're going to be around healthy people. And I always think of this, Gaylen, like if you want to get sick, all you got to do is hang around sick people. But if you want to be healthy, you got to hang around healthy people. But it's not contagious. You would have to do the things healthy people do in order to stay strong and get healthy. So sickness is contagious. Health, you have to do the things healthy people do or do the things happy people do.
Yep. The second truth is that happiness is maintained by growing and learning.
Expand your life. So many people, when they come into treatment, their life is actually shrinking. They're going less places, they're involved with less people, they're not pursuing their hobbies or interests or activities, they're reading less, they're seeing less movies, they're eating the same old foods out of the same old cardboard box that they've been pouring out of. And so their life, for all practical purposes, is shrinking. But if you want to feel more contentment and more happiness, kick your life back open, get your life to grow and expand again. Go new places, hang out with new people, try a new hobby, a new interest, read different books, try a different genre of music, and all of those kinds of things. When you expand your life like that, it produces contentment and happiness.
So are you a learner, Dr. Hal?
Well, yeah, I think so. I read a lot, and I'm curious by nature, and I'm just interested in everything. So if you told me you were an underwater basket weaver off the coast of Alaska, I'd be just fascinated with that. Like, tell me more about that. So yeah, I want to learn. I want to discover, and I think that translates into contentment and happiness for me.
So your life is expanding, as you said, when you're trying new foods, going to new places, meeting new people.
Shopping in a different store, taking a different route to work.
Taking a class, reading different books.
Listening to a different genre of music, trying new recipes, and like we've been doing this morning, learning new technology.
Yeah. We went back to old technology because new technology wouldn't work. Yeah.
Failed us.
all of those things, Gaylen, indicate that you're growing and learning, and that translates into an overall sense of happiness and contentment in your life. You might ask yourself in your life, have you been expanding or has your life been shrinking? And many people come into the mental health program, they've had increased experience with anxiety and depression. They feel down and sad and worried. And both of those, the anxiety and the depression, cause people to feel isolated or avoid other people. And they also avoid new opportunities. They just don't try things anymore. And if you want to expand your life, you got to find a new activity level. You got to take it up a bump. Find areas where you can develop and activities where you can grow and learn.
Well, thanks for listening to today's podcast. You can download materials that help you develop skills to identify emotional problems, reduce symptoms, and prevent relapse at journeytorecovery.com. I'm Gaylen Morse. Thanks for listening to our program on finding contentment in recovery. See you next time on Journey to Recovery. Remember, recovery is a journey. Enjoy the ride.